The Israel Defense Forces downing at least 3 targets, they say, over the sea. I want to talk about all of this here, so let's bring in Hussin Abdul-Hussian, a research fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Well, first off, I do want to talk about these Hezbollah launches. What do we know overall about the significance of the locations that were being targeted? But also, one thing that's important to note is that these launches have been happening now since pretty much October 8th.
Yeah, well, this is the issue. This war is one that Hezbollah started, and Hezbollah claims that this is connected to Gaza, even though it has nothing to do with it. There's a UN Security Council resolution that brought to an end war between Hezbollah and Israel back in 2006. And this resolution stipulates that Hezbollah must disband and withdraw to north of the Litani River, which is some 20 miles north of the Israeli border. None of this happened. 1701 was never implemented despite the presence of a UN peacekeeping force. Hezbollah is still active. It has dragged the Lebanese to a war against the will of most, or at least a Lebanese majority. And what we see now is escalation, that Hezbollah is pushing the two sides to a bigger war, even though Washington has warned Israel several times of not being dragged or not going or not escalating to a bigger war. But Hezbollah seems bent on dragging both sides to a war, to a bigger one than the one that we see now.
And I do want to show this video that was released a short time ago by the Israel Defense Forces. They did say that it shows the quote-unquote elimination of 2 significant terrorists in Hezbollah's aerial unit. How significant are these, I guess, killings, assassinations, whatever you want to call them?
Well, it seems to me that this is what's getting under the skin of Hezbollah, that Israel has managed over the past 199 days of decimating a big chunk of its leading commanders of the leading force, the special forces, they call them the Radwan forces. Israel has successfully taken these out over the past 6 months. And Hezbollah doesn't have a way to counter this, to stop this, or to respond to this. And to my mind, this is why we see Hezbollah escalating in a way that risks taking both sides to war. But I think the Israelis have successfully taken close to 300 of these Hezbollah commanders with almost no civilian casualties on the Lebanese side. So this is an impressive performance from the Israeli side.
Let's also talk about the sanctions here against the IDF Battalion, one of those battalions. What do we know overall about those sanctions? Because some within the U.S. have said it's not really sanctions, it's more withholding funding. So what can you tell me about all of that?
Well, even though we don't have a lot of details about this, but what we know so far is that this is not a new issue. This is an older one that has been brewing. And I've seen reports that Israel has moved this battalion to the north, where there's no contact with Palestinians. So what we see now is something that has been going on for a while, and I think this is probably even before before Hamas started the war in Gaza. So this is a separate issue, but it just happens that because there's war and everything is sensitive to everyone. So now we hear more about them. The Israeli contention is not about the amount or the withholding or whatever Washington wants to call it. The Israeli contention is that if this happens, this doesn't mean, this means that Washington is not dealing with Israel as government to government or as army to army, but as government going after separate battalions. And no 2 countries, let alone allies, like to deal this way. I mean, I understand that we, the United States, deal with our enemies, such as Iran, in such a way. We slam sanctions on the IRGC without actually going after the regular Iranian army, which is understandable. But I don't see that this should be the case with allied countries such as Israel.
Could this potentially cause more of a rift, I guess, between the U.S. and Israel? We know that there has been those disagreements, so to speak, between Biden and Netanyahu over the past several months. Could this kind of widen the divide?
Well, it's the relationship between the two has been strained, to say the least. I think the Israelis have been trying to mend things, and we've seen that in the way that they practice self-restraint in their response to the Iranian attacks on their territory a week ago. So I'd say that the Israeli side is trying to listen to Washington, and it took so many American recommendations in implementing the war in Gaza, but still there's still strain. I'm not sure where this takes the two sides, but I think there's no the majority on both sides doesn't want to see a rift, a gap between these two allies.
The billions of dollars in funding that is going to be approved by the Senate and is going to eventually be sent over to Israel, how pivotal is that in the fight that Israel is kind of happening here with Hamas, Hezbollah, all of them? How pivotal is that in this overall war?
Well, they are very instrumental. Israel needs every missile, every cent, every fund, everything that it can get, because we know that militias like Hezbollah and Hamas use really cheap technology to inflict damage on Israel, including the Israeli civilian population. And Israel needs all these interceptors and all these systems to counter the Hezbollah and the Hamas. And recently we've seen the Iranian attacks. I've seen reports that Israel spent close to $500 million to counter the Iranian attack on its space and its territory. So these interceptors, these systems are really expensive, and Iran has flooded the militias, has flooded the Middle East with cheap technology that's forcing Israel to use its more expensive technology all the time. So I think at this point, Israel as an ally, they need every bit of support that the United States, not only the United States, but the United States is the bigger supporter, the biggest supporter and donor to Israel, but that every ally around the world can spare to help the Israelis in this war.
Today, as I mentioned, does mark day 200 of the war between Israel and Hamas. Did you think when this first happened, when the October 7th attack by Hamas on Israel took place, that 200 days later, this is where we'd be?
Well, what we knew at the time and still know now is that the gap is unbridgeable. Hamas has been trying to use the hostages that it keeps, the Israeli hostages, as a bargaining chip to stop this war and go back to October 7. And I think the Israelis have been burnt by Hamas. They're not willing to go back to October 7. The Israelis don't imagine that there'll be an end line, an end point for this war. That this war will end when Hamas can no longer fight. And this is not the first time, by the way, that Israel does this. There has been previous rounds, such as the end of the Second Intifada in 2004, 2005. It did not end on a specific day or date. It just kept on going, albeit at a much lower intensity than how it started. It keeps on going until the terrorists do not have enough energy or ability to inflict any harm on Israelis or Israeli territories.
How does this conflict here that is going on right now,
even though we've seen...
Oh, go ahead.
I was saying that even though we've seen lower intensity, I don't see an end date. So I think this will go on until Israel is sure that Hamas cannot fight back.
And how does this conflict here that is going on between Israel and Hamas, how does it differ from previous Israel-Palestinian conflicts? Well,
this is one of the largest scale conflicts, I think. To my mind, I can't remember a time when the Palestinians themselves were engaged in full-scale war against Israel. I mean, we know that in the past, 1948, 1967, 1973, these were major full-scale wars, but these included or saw the engagement of Arab governments, Syria, Jordan, Egypt. The Palestinians never fought a full-scale war with Israel. We can think of the first and the second Intifada, even though these had suicide bombers and these inflicted a lot of damage on Israelis, but this was not an organized fighting force. This time, on October 7, this was the first time, to my mind, that the Palestinians attacked in an organized military manner. And as they did, they inflicted the biggest amount of damage on Israelis. They killed 1,200 Israelis. This the biggest number that we can imagine going back almost a century. So this was the first major war that the Palestinians launched on Israel, and as such, I think Israel responded and countered, and they've been trying to bring this to an end ever since.
My last question for you here, where do things stand on the Rafa offensive? We have been talking about that now for months and months, but it sounds as though things now are really starting to progress forward.
Well, I think there are two factors here. Number one, Israel is trying to make sure that there are not enough fighters left in the rest of Gaza outside of Rafah. So after Israel took down Hamas, since then the Israeli military has been clearing this territory. So this is one factor. The other factor is that I've seen reports that Israel has ordered tents and is now in the process of building a refugee town that will probably take upward of 500,000 Palestinians that are supposed to move from Rafah, out of Rafah, to this town to give the Israeli military some leeway for maneuver to take on what's left of Hamas. So everyone expects this to happen. We're not sure that this will happen the same way that the previous battles happened between Israel and Hamas since October 7. It might be only incursions in and out for the Israeli military. It might be a full scale, just pushing the whole battalions, the 4 battalions that Hamas still have left in that part of Gaza. But what we are certain of, this day is coming. When it is coming, it's probably approaching, but we can't put a date for that.
All right. Hussin Abdul-Hussian, Research Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and break down the latest headlines out of the Middle East. Anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Well, no, there's nothing much. I think we should keep on supporting Israel and doing what it's doing. Wars are complicated and ugly. They need persistence and they need patience, most of all. And we should be patient. The Israelis are patient. And I think we should wait until the Israelis are done, and then we judge how things went and we assess things looking back.
All right. Thank you again for taking the time to be here with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.